retweet that for you.
My laptop froze. Excellent start to the podcast. Good evening. It's another episode of the UK Cult Band Player Rating. We are live with our resident expert, Robbie. How's it going, mate?
Yes, we are. Yeah, no, bring on this Sunday because it won't be the same. We won't see the same team again.
No, and by the looks of it, from the unofficial depth chart, Eric Fisher's back.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate that's going to be. Obviously, training Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. See how he obviously responds. But it's definitely any help along that O-line is needed.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the players, but just before we came on air, you said it was very reminiscent of watching Andrew Luck. I mean, it was very reminiscent of watching Andrew Luck with the good, the bad, and the ugly, I suppose is a fair thing to say.
Absolutely. Some absolute beautiful stretches of play and just some ugly. You could go back to Jacoby Brissett 10-sack game and, I think there's a massive overreaction watching the game again today. I think there was a lot of good, especially bearing in mind the off-season we've had with Carson only having a few days actual live kind of snaps. So I think we've got a bit of, I'm a bit positive tonight.
So we'll start with the obvious spot then, the quarterback, Carson Wentz. Like we say, limited preseason. This was sort of maybe his last preseason game, first proper game to say, it's like deja vu from last year.
Yeah, it's just been like the kind of ship Chris Ballard's had when it comes to quarterbacks, with the kind of in and out and kind of lack of consistency. Obviously, when you mention Carson Wentz, you've got to mention the offensive line. They've been getting absolutely bagged on, which is, at times was like an open gate. Davenport's getting a lot of stick, obviously, because he gave up a lot of pressure. Braden Smith got absolutely bull rushed, which we haven't seen. A little bit worrying because his preseason, a lot of the kind of news and kind of talk about him was that he wasn't up to scratch during the off season. Worrying that Ryan Kelly got bull rushed as well. But looking at the stats, the Seahawks only got 3 sacks. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of physicality, but there's only 3 registered sacks. So a lot to work on. And I think this comes down to the way Frank Reich kind of goes into the season. He says we're prepared, but we didn't seem physically ready for live snaps.
Yeah. Our friend Lawrence is in the show. I know you're saying, this is the thing. You're saying you're having a bit of back and forth, but it is, there's so many opinions out there and nobody's ever wrong. That's the thing about football. But no, Carson was really good considering the circumstances. Did I expect us to win? Yes. Was I annoyed that we lost? Yes. Is it the end of the world? No.
Absolutely. Week 1, you can't get too high or too low. But again, with Carson, there were stretches where, again, I don't want to put the blame on him because, again, he's only just come into the team. But there were times where, Russell Wilson would just throw the ball away. He'd have the ball in his hand from the snap and he'd be on the floor straight away because he knew there was nothing there. We said before, Phillip Rivers has a quick release because he doesn't get hit, and that's why he could play for such a long time. A quick read, nothing's there, get rid of it. Whereas Carson, he likes to try and extend the plays, and a bit like Andrew Luck, you need to know when to throw it, and he needs to learn how to dive. He needs to slide with his legs, because twice he went in very Andrew Luck reminiscent. Obviously in the first quarter he spilt it, and the second one he could have got an absolute pasting. Someone so experienced, obviously coming in as an experienced QB. But I had it with Lawrence earlier on Twitter. Lawrence made some fantastic points, but I'd always come back to whether it be the scheme or not. If it's not there, he needs to get rid and stop that pressure coming. Again, yes, reiterate the fact of Davenport and Braden Smith gave up a fair bit. Ryan Kelly got hit down the middle. Which obviously that wasn't Carson Wentz's fault. Some of the play action didn't work. So I'd say it's more of a scheme, but certainly Carson Wentz could help out as well.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel it? I mean, do you think it's fair to say he's still building that trust with this team? He doesn't trust any offensive line.
He's had no time. You could see, with Russell Wilson, you take the snap. He knew where his receivers were going to be. He knows who he can trust, whether it be through the middle or out wide. He knew they were going to be there because they've got that chemistry with DK Metcalf, with Tyler Lockett, with Everett. He's had that time with them, whereas, Carson just hasn't had that time. So that's why I don't want to get too high or too low. But certainly I would defend the O-line because it wasn't all on them.
The good from Carson Wentz and one of my favourite receivers of all time at the minute, Zach Pascal, 2 TDs. This looks like a decent connection, especially for the likes of when TY retires.
Definitely, I don't even think you need to look that far down the line. I'm trying to think, it was during the second quarter there. He had a beautiful throw, Paris Campbell running across field. And I haven't been Paris Campbell's biggest fan, but he certainly showed that he held onto that ball with that contact as he was turning. Pittman had a beautiful catch there as well. So there was so many positives from it. His arm looked really good. He looked fit running with when he had to scramble, which was obviously a bit of a worry if he'd have that or not. So again, it's just going to take a little bit of time, hopefully, to gel and to kind of build it up. What I really liked as well was Zach Pascal. After he was at fault for the flag that obviously brought that running TD back, Carson went straight back to him. So I really like to see that because it obviously helps gel the team.
Yeah. Oh, my laptop's frozen. Brilliant.
Sorry, still there?
I'm still there. All right, I'll try and talk then. Mikey saying getting a bit bored of leaving points on the field.
I was going to come to this towards the end about the red zone again, because last year, the last 2 years really, our red zone hasn't been good enough. Certainly, when you look at the fourth downs, the fourth down conversions were horrendous again. But again, it's just gelling. We've got to remember, don't get too high or too low.
Yeah.
Week 1, I'd say if we were playing the Seahawks team week 10, 11, or 12, I really think it'd be a different result. Because if you look where the Seahawks got their points, it was botched plays. It was a 3rd and 9, like on their own 25. Because it got mismatched with Tyler Lockett kind of matching up with Kari Willis instead of one of our corners. And so, little things like that. But again, that's why it's professional football. That's why it's the NFL. It's the small margins that make a difference.
Okay, I'll get to the next couple of comments in a minute.
Yeah.
So a rating out of 10 for Carson in that game. I mean, I really like what he did. Like you said, he was still in that Philadelphia mindset. The playbook maybe isn't right for him because he's not a check down player. So we maybe need to scheme a bit deeper up the field. I'd say about a 7, maybe a 6.
I think he needs to learn when to take the yards that are given him.
Yeah.
Again, but it comes down to scheme. We're not in the locker room. Before I rewatched the game, I was kind of thinking a 5. But then after that, I was kind of a 6. So I'm more than happy to split the difference between 6 and 7.
Yeah, the 6 would be. Especially, like we say, first game, new team, new offense. So we get to the comments from Lawrence and Mikey. Give this offense some time to get to know each other, another week or 2. Yeah, I think that's what we're saying. This is, you got to think a lot of these guys were injured out in preseason, COVID issues in preseason. So they are rusty together. Just give them a chance,
Yeah.
Mike saying first game, guys. So no need for panic. Lost game 1 of the last season to a far worse team, and ended up okay. And it's true. It's a long way to. It sucks losing the first game because everyone's so hyped it, and everyone thinks their team's going to go 17-0. But that's just it. It's just the first game. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing.
It is quite funny watching the NFL Network, though. If your team won, they're the best thing, and they're going to go on a Super Bowl run. But it's September. Let's if we're still talking about these fundamental errors in December, we've got an issue. Certainly, we just need to. Frank Reich just needs to get them ready. You need to get them match fit, which I know.
And at least we didn't lose like the Packers. But we'll stick to our team for this.
Yeah.
Okay. We've touched on them already. The receiving core. Zach Pascal held on to it in the touchdown zone. I can't speak
that one, mate. Yeah.
In the end zone. He took that big hit and held on to it. That's something we've not seen in a while. A Colts receiver taking a big hit like that.
Yeah. Paris Campbell took one. Pittman took one.
Yeah.
It was really good to see.
And Strachan as well. I'm going to say Strachan because we're English. He made a big play on, I think it was like 3rd and 7.
Yeah.
Maybe. So anything stand out from the receivers?
Do you know what? Away from the targets, the way they all kind of muddle in for blocking schemes. So when we're running, they're all finishing the plays. They're not just walking off because they're not going to get the ball. Every single one of them are there doing their piece. And it's and that's what a team does, which is good to see. As I said, I'm not Paris Campbell's biggest fan just because of we haven't seen enough of him. He's taken that number one, but that catch over the middle, and I think he should be kind of used a little bit more.
Yeah.
Pascal does what he does. JT took a couple out wide. Hines took a couple as well. And obviously, Jack Doyle was only used in the 4th quarter.
Yeah. Our feelings about Jack Doyle. He's God.
Yeah.
But just for me, something didn't seem to click in that game. And Frank Wright will go. The excellent coach he is. He'll go back and look at that, and he'll find out what it was. But for me, it seemed too rigid. It seemed too scripted, and it was just so many of the same mistakes from last year are still in it. And it's calling a power run on 2nd and 13 with Nahi Hines in the backfield, and it's just like, are we really still trying to pull off this short package thing?
But again, I think it was right that said, the first couple of weeks they're going to try and keep it a little bit more easier just because they are gelling. There will be bigger plays as we go down the list, but Zach Pascal, he had what was it, 5 targets, which was nice. Campbell only had 3, Strachan only had 2, I think it was. So, as a core, I definitely couldn't be bad. And it's not like we had really kind of big fundamental kind of catching errors. There wasn't not really much that kind of sticks out as the way of personal errors. So
I'd say as a group, probably about a 7, maybe even an 8, because like you say, there was no mistakes there.
You got to remember, this is the first time they're playing as a unit against the first teams, because obviously we've played a load of nonsense in the preseason. Playing Jamal Adams, who is he gets paid for a reason.
Yeah.
So they didn't shut anyone down really. Everyone got a little bit of a touch. So I'd probably go 7 again, maybe 6, but
yeah, 7. A couple of comments. He checked out. Okay, Carson. He checked down a lot in the game. Seattle took away the deep pass the majority of the game, and he threw to running back and tight ends. We will get to that because that is more on the coaching side. What I want to get onto. Tom, why is the defense always bad in the first half?
Well, it's just not consistency, but we'll come on to that.
Not always the first half, but in general, last year they were amazing in the first half. We are such a bipolar team, and you take the first drive, for example. The first drive on Sunday was one of the best drives I've seen the Colts offense do in a long, long time.
It was smooth. It was quick. It was up tempo. It was nice.
And I can't even really tell you how many plays we did or what plays we did, but everything just clicked. And then it went stale, and then the defense has started off stale, but then got hot, and then it went.
Yeah, we can come on to that because obviously that comes down to the coaching first half versus second half adjustments.
Yeah, but we'll quickly touch on the tight ends. Nothing really much to say. Probably a 5.
Do you know, no, there was some really nice block when we went to kind of 6 personnel kind of blocking Wentz, which we had most of our success with, which gave Wentz time. Whether that be Doyle and their Granson in there. There was a couple of times where Taylor stepped in for a bit of blocking. The tight ends in Frank Wright's scheme do a lot of the donkey work. I don't think Granson was targeted once. I think Mo Ali Cox was targeted once, but it was slightly over his head. When the commentator said he wasn't touched, but you can quite clearly see the guy holding his jersey. That's another thing. And then obviously Jack Doyle, he had his 3 catches, but all came in kind of garbage time. But Jack will always find space down the middle or out wide, and he is Mr. Consistent.
So happy with a 5, maybe a 6.
Okay, 6, yeah.
Yeah.
If they're not getting targeted with the ball, their job is to kind of help with Davenport and with Smith, really. Where in blocking, we had a lot of success getting the ball down the field.
Okay, running backs. I mean, I will state my frustration with the running backs when we get to the coaches, but I thought they was excellent. Seattle are a very good run D team, especially when they show up, and it's a hard team to play against. Everyone knows Seattle are a physical team, they're a loud team, and they're going to hit, and they're going to hit hard. Pete Carroll's had about 90 years of plastic surgery, and it was a hard night for them, but they stayed in there, which is hard. Which, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, but if you compare both running games from Mars and Seahawks, Carson for the Seahawks, he had a few really nice breakaways. I think they're kind of 12, 15, 16 yards, whereas our longest with JT were 12. I think I think both averaged around just over 3 yards a carry, which in the NFL it needs to be one of your bell cows need to be averaging more than that.
Yeah.
There's not really much to say. Hines he loves his spin move across the middle, which got him a few extra yards. But yeah, it was just I think with the whole offensive line, I think with the play action, some of the play action was not exactly smooth. It was a bit stumbled at times. So again, that will improve. And with the players not, again, I'd come back. None of them are really match fit. They're not that physically fit. So when it comes to impact and contact. I don't think it's anything to worry about. And obviously the lack of Marlon Mack on the field obviously suited up, but didn't get a snap.
We'll get on to now the offensive line because Tom bringing us in with a nice little segue. Left tackle is still a major concern. Davenport was as much use as a turnstile on Sunday. Hoping Fisher is back for Sunday or the latest week 3. I mean, yeah, it wasn't pretty. Don't get me wrong, there was still good plays in there from the offensive line. People are acting like our offensive line just did not turn up for any of the game. There were good plays in there. And even from Davenport, it was never consistent. It was never consistent. And I was watching it, and the thing I spotted most is Davenport. I was watching him more because of the focus on the left tackle at the minute, so I'll let you touch on. I know Braden Smith. You have things to say about him, but he just looked lost, and he was looking to Quentin Nelson for guidance. And Quentin, you know what Quentin's like. He's not going to talk to anyone. He's just going to flatten the guy in front of him. So for me, it wasn't necessarily Bobby Davenport's fault. I need one of my captains to step up there. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, Davenport's getting a lot of the abuse, rightly or wrongly. When you look at it as a 5, Davenport got done, I'd say 2 or 3 times quite badly, which kind of crushed the pocket.
Yeah.
Braden Smith was bull rushed, which when you think he was signed as the right guard, and he was known for his physicality and his not being able to get moved It was quite a shock to see Braden Smith get ball rush that, and also Ryan Kelly got done as well, straight down the middle.
Yeah.
So they're all at their times. Is Ryan Kelly fully fit? Braden Smith. It was reported that he's injured his foot. Is Quinton Nelson really fully fit? We don't know. Davenport's a second, third string left tackle. So perhaps he needed a bit more scheme protection with a running back in there or a tight end more. It did happen at times, but you can certainly see the Seahawks defensive line. They're quite smart. They're schemed very well. They looked at their kind of weak points and kind of how we lined up, and they attacked us. And they were more physical than us, and we just got beat up.
Yeah, I would say, I know Davenport's going to get most of the stick because he is, like you say, the third stringer. But for me, other people have to step up and know that he isn't the best player. Like you say, that's a concern. And this can be a stubbornness thing from Frank Reich sometimes. He doesn't like to admit a weak link in the team. And all he had to do was, we got Jack Doyle, who's one of the better pass blocking tight ends. Just put him next to him for a couple of plays, help him out.
We did. That's when the second quarter there, when we had that touchdown drive, with Paris Campbell's catch, with Strand's catch as well on the left hand. So he had Carson Wentz had 6 players in front of him that were blocking. Yeah. He created a pocket. There was a few times where their edge rushers got round the back where perhaps if Carson Wentz was a bit more match in tune, he'd have stepped up into the pocket. Rather than keep stepping back to where the kind of pocket collapses around you. Again, it's 101 things, and the quarterback's got to be there to help out the offensive line as well. So I think it was just a whole scheme. I think it was a whole unit rather than just saying the offensive line. I think just saying the offensive line is lazy. And yes, there was individual errors, individual mistakes, but as a whole unit, it's got to fall on everyone's shoulders there.
So the most expensive line, offensive line in football at the minute as well. Not a good look. Maybe a 3 out of 10.
I'd be a bit more kind and kind of give them a 5-6.
Okay.
Just because in that second quarter we were so offensively, we looked really good.
Yeah.
It's just putting it all in one. Let's say that third quarter was just an absolute nightmare, from start to finish, that third quarter, which when we come on to the coaches, they've got to take their kind of slack for it.
And I think it's like we say with Carson Wentz, he has to learn to trust this offensive line. Maybe this offensive line wasn't used to a quarterback instantly retreating or releasing it a bit quicker, and that will come with time.
And that was a success last year of Rivers. Snap, bang, ball, gone. It wasn't a 2.5, 3, 4 second, 5 step drop back. It was a case of the ball's here, the ball's gone.
Yeah.
So again, it's about helping out what we've got on the field. If they're not playing to that elite level, then the coach has got a scheme to it.
Yeah. Okay. Switching over to defense then. Let's start defensive line.
I'm just gutted about the whole of the defense, from the line, from the linebackers to safeties, the corners. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
When you look across the whole 60 minutes, yes, there were pockets of goodness of when Buckner and Darius got their sack. They both literally steamrolled down the middle. And it was a thing of beauty, but there just wasn't enough of it. And we've said about the defense for a couple of years now, and I said in the WhatsApp chat, as soon as you catch up with this, you're going to be pulling your hair out. There's just a lack of physicality. If you look at Everett's TD, so I'm going off a bit of a tangent. Bobby Okereke gets moved back from another receiver. Everett just comes across, literally just jogs in front of Darius Leonard, catches the ball, and he doesn't get contact until he's in the end zone. Where if a linebacker was matched for, as soon as that defensive player runs across you, impact, get your body into them. and letting them know you're there. So if they try and catch the ball, you've got less chance of it. And just everyone across them, just, you know, I just feel gutted for them.
Mm-hmm. It like you say, I mean, I could sit here and pick every part of the defense apart. Obviously, we'll give every section a rating, but it just didn't work. Whatever the plan was, it just didn't work. But we touched on it just before we came on air. And are we now seeing the price we are paying for letting Anthony Walker go?
Potentially. I think you've got to look at who we're playing. You know, Russell Wilson is an elite quarterback. Yeah. I don't think he's an elite thrower, but I think the way he reads the game, I think he's elite. You know, when it's not there, he just throws it away. You know, well, I think one of his throws away is literally ball in hand, looked up, gone, and the ball was down because he knew it wasn't there. Which, you know, it didn't really give our edge rushers a lot of time to get to him. You know, if you look at the kind of Quitty Pay, you know, so much was made of him. You know, I think he had 3 tackles, 1 for loss, which, you know, when he played the majority of the snaps was a little bit worrying. You know, Buckner had moments of absolute brilliance, but again, over the 60 minutes, you know, not enough. 6 tackles, 1 for loss. So yeah, just the whole defensive line, you know, just wasn't in the races, but you know.
Such
underwhelming. If the defensive line's getting their pressure, makes the linebackers' job easy, makes the safety's job easy, makes the corners easier, because, you know, you're giving Russell Wilson time to find them pockets, and, you know, Tyler Lockett, as we saw, is an elite catcher.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, there was good plays in there, and this always comes back to haunt the Colts. Is we're never consistent throughout a game.
Yeah,
there was good plays in there. You know, Darius Leonard showing his aggression and that famous punch strip that he does. You know, and DeForest Buckner, we know what he can do. We know he can absolutely bull rush centers and go through the quarterback. That's what he's good at.
Yeah, but like, you know, in the second quarter, when you know, when things were going so well offensively, you know, they had a 3rd and 9 on their 30-yard line, and our linebackers just, you know, they lost their lanes. You know, they got a little bit too eager. You know, they thought, oh, we can get Russell here, you know, and then Russell Wilson managed to get out. You know, Russell Wilson only managed to get out 2 or 3 times, but, you know, when he does, it is damaging. And, you know, when you're playing quarterbacks and get out of the pocket, you've got to keep your lane discipline. You know, you've got to keep that integrity of, you know, this is A gap, B gap, C gap. This is the edge. We know where we need to be to stop him from getting out. Yeah. And then that Tyler Lockett touchdown. You know, miss kind of communication. Maybe Kari Willis running with a guy that can run as fast as Tyler Lockett can. I don't know, but, you know, again, that's another 3rd and 6 on their own 20. You know, so that's 2 3rd and longs, which, you know, we've perhaps gambled a little bit too much on their kind of on protecting the box. You know, and they've found a weakness over the back, which we know, you know, with our corners perhaps, you know, aren't as good as what we need them to be.
So a rating out of 10, 4?
Yeah. For the defensive line, it just wasn't enough impact.
Just Dynasty Outsource Pod, nice to see you. We always love people in here. And saying, is Marley Cox the tight end to Oyun? I'm guessing the main tight end. Nah, never over Jack Doyle. Never. Why Jack Doyle's here? Jack Doyle will be the number 1 QB. QB.
Hey, I'd put him there.
Hey.
He is a perfect human being.
I'm just saying, Frank, if you're watching.
Linebackers, massive issue. Missing Anthony Walker, I think that showed massively. You know, Darius Leonard definitely grew into the game, but, you know, he wasn't the explosive person that we've seen, and perhaps, you know, Bobby Okereke still learning. You know, do we really need to mention how he got manhandled by Everett? Again, it just shows a lack of technique. You know, we mentioned on the off season about tackling and missed tackles. You know, I think he was just a little bit too naive going into tackles and with his field positioning.
Yeah.
When Bobby O'Reilly needs to, I'm a massive Bobby Okereke fan, but he showed his naivety. I think naivety should be the whole. When you look at the linebackers, they were just very naive. But we're playing Russell Wilson first game of the season.
It felt like to me, and anyone who's American probably won't get this analogy because it's a Sunday league analogy. But it feels like to me when you turn up to play team who's bottom of the league, not scored a goal, conceded about 40, and you think, oh, we've won this before you've even stepped on the pitch.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And then you just get your asses kicked. And that's what it felt like. Darius Leonard looked, for a long time, he looked lost. He didn't look like he didn't know what to do. Maybe, like you said, it's his brother Anthony Walker not being there. So maybe he's now realising how Anthony Walker rose Darius Leonard's game. Now he has to do that with Bobby Okereke.
I said that in the off-season. Is Darius Leonard going to have the same impact without Anthony Walker?
Yeah.
And it's gonna take a lot to kind of get going.
Yeah. So a rating for the linebackers, not pretty, I guess.
A 4.
Yeah.
Darius had that kind of half a sack and he had that forced fumble, but Scott Carson's a fantastic running back, and the fact that he fumbled the ball, is very odd for him. So, if you take that forced fumble away, the linebackers didn't do much.
Yeah.
Okereke, he had 7 tackles, so it was good, but there was at times where from playing rugby, taking that step forward to try and tackle rather than just letting them run and taking them back with you. So it's all about stopping those yards, and I just don't think they were at the races.
Tackle in American football, I'm sorry to say this to the American viewers, but the tackling in American football is poor. It really is.
They don't get time in training camp. But by the time they get to the NFL, the standard of technique, it's a basic heads up approach, and they just, they're looking to take people's heads off. Where, if they actually had a good form when it comes to tackling, they wouldn't need to try and take people's heads off, because you don't need to injure someone. You need to get them down. You need to be able to get the ball out. You need to take them back, and it's a moment like that.
Yeah.
Okay. It was quite funny. I think it was in the third quarter. JT's gone for a run. He's got held up. And then Jack Doyle's actually gone behind like he was in a ruck and actually took him an extra 2, 3, 4 yards, which made me smile for my boy Jack.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that. Okay, we'll just do the cornerbacks, defensive back, safety as a whole, because we know we like to chop and change as the Colts. Anyone really stand out? I mean, for me,
Kari Willis said good and bad.
Yeah,
he got absolutely crucified on that first Tyler Lockett touchdown, but again, was that a communication miss? But he had a lot to do. Kari Willis, I think he had 9 or 10 maybe tackles in the game. Julian Blackman had a quiet game for him. So that's from the kind of safety points. Corners, Kenny Moore got done on a touchdown on the last one, but that could be forgiven. And when you look at Tyler Lockett's other touchdown, where he's kind of he started just outside the hash, obviously, because that's where he has to be, and he's just gone for a little walk through the middle. He didn't leave at the middle of the park and just turn, and the ball was there. So it was just not good. There wasn't enough big plays needed. This team's talking about having 40 takeaways this year. From what I saw, no chance. Xavier Rhodes, would he have made much of a difference? I think from a communication standpoint, yes. But it was just, there was too many big plays given up. But again, as we mentioned in the defensive line, if defensive line aren't having their impact, it's going to make their job harder at the back of the field, isn't it? So, it's as a collective, that's where I'd be looking at it. But 4 or 5.
Yeah, I mean, my last point on this, I agree with the rating 4 or 5. But my last point on this is people forget we are still quite a young team. Okay.
Yeah, fair point.
We have experienced DeForest. Darius Leonard has a lot of experience in the league, but is still pretty young. You'd say Xavier Rhodes, if anyone, was the veteran of that defense because of his time in the league.
Him and Anthony Walker, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we don't need to jump on the back. It's football. This stuff happens. But it wasn't pretty. Moving on to the coaches, I could rant about just the gameplay. The game plan for about 4 hours. It was, for me, awful on both sides of the ball. Absolutely. And I expect better from Matt Eberflus and Marcus Brady.
Do you know what? I think the biggest thing was at halftime. Where Seattle made their changes. They kind of spent time. They kind of looked at what we were showing them. We didn't really change anything. When you're looking at the fourth downs, we shouldn't have been at a position of having those fourth downs. And the players let them down. But in the same vein, they're there to help the scheme. Defensively, we're just not at the races. I saw a quote from Eberflus today saying that they're going to go back to basics. It's week 1. You can't really go any more basic. There was some nice plays, as I said. When Darius and DeForest, they managed to get that sack. Kari Willis coming in around as well, got his sack. There were 1 or 2 really nice plays, but overall, Russell Wilson picked us apart. Where we've watched Andrew Luck pull people apart, we've watched Peyton Manning pull people apart, and we were just beaten by a better scheme. We're out schemed, and when you've had such a long time, week 1, we just looked underprepared.
Yeah, and I suppose my point is, and I won't make it personal because my feelings about Matt Eberflus, and I'm sure the viewers do. They've heard my rantings enough time about Matt Eberflus.
Enjoy every single one of them.
And for me, and this even goes to Frank Reich, as great as he is as a head coach and as a team builder, whenever we come up against a Pete Carroll, we have to play Tampa Bay, a Bruce Arians, these sort of veteran coaches.
Belichick this year as well.
Belichick, we always get out-schemed. And it's a running theme with the Colts. And you could even go back to the Chiefs when we got blown out by the Chiefs in the playoffs. We keep getting out-schemed by these guys, and it's hindering us, and that's what annoys me.
Yeah, no. As I say, I think if we played this Seahawks team later on in the season, I think it would have been totally different. Looking at the stats, I've got them written down here. Total yardage, they only had 50 more yards than us over the whole game, but yet, they managed them extra TDs. So it's the red zone improvement. It's the third, fourth down conversions. It's the not giving up that long 3rd and 9, the 3rd and 6, the 3rd and 20s that we seem to be giving up or seem to have given up. So it's about getting that right, really. But I think we also need to give special mentions to Seahawks special teams. That third quarter, they pinned us in. They pinned us into our own 15-yard for, I think it was three drives in a row. So again, their special teams won the day as well.
Yeah, special teams is what it comes down to.
Yeah, their punter was unreal with the accuracy. So it's a little bit of everything, but certainly if I'm giving our coaching staff a rating, I'm going 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's generous. I'd give them a 3, but I'll meet you at 4 because I don't want to be too much of a negative Nancy. Yeah. Okay, I forgot to mention special teams. I mean, for me, Rigoberto Sanchez, knowing what we know he can do, wasn't great. Blankenship was pretty spot on. That's all.
He was great. Rigo, you usually see his punts going a little bit further, landing a little bit easier, but just one of them games. It's just one of them. Let's chalk it up to week one. If give a special mention to people like Zaire Franklin, Isaiah Rogers. These are the people that aren't necessarily getting the majority of the snaps, but they need to come in to make that impact on the defense. It's going to be interesting this week coming up against the Rams.
Yeah.
Aaron Donald's going to have a field day if we don't improve.
Yeah.
But hopefully the coaches scheme up as well. And while we're kind of bagging on everyone, I think Lucas Oil Stadium needs to take a big look at itself. First game back of the season, and I'm hearing Seahawks chants through the telly.
Yeah.
It's so it's a little bit of everyone's to blame, I think.
Just a typical Sunday night.
Yeah, and I was watching it with my best mate. He's a Seahawks fan. Brilliant.
Yeah.
But again, I think we've been fairly kind of negative, but again, there's so many good things that could be, just that little 1%. If we'd have got those fourth downs, if we got a bit more pressure on Russell Wilson, so it didn't make them long completions, they wouldn't have been up at halftime, and we managed to get a couple of 3 and outs if we try to be positive and kind of looking forward. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Sunday now, just to hopefully put it to bed as such.
And I think, like you say, they just seem to get the rub of the green on Sunday night. That first touchdown for me wasn't a beautiful pass. It was a good adjustment by
Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, but it was just one of them things. Like when a wide receiver of that quality and talent makes a on-the-fly adjustment, you can't expect one man safety to keep up with him.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Like you said, they executed, we didn't, and I suppose that's a motto of this video. Well, the message of this video.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit it dead on there. Even ball possession, we had more ball possession than them from times. Like from I think I read that there. We got 35 minutes possession. Third down conversions, 5 of 13. That's not enough.
It's the same problems from last year, and that's what scares me more than anything.
I'd like to see some more 2-back schemes with Hines and Mack or Hines and Taylor.
Yeah.
Just to give a different look. But again, week one, Carson hasn't had that much time. So I think we need to just jump off him a little bit and give everyone the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. I was going to ask you to rate the fans, but
mate, they're getting a 2.
A 2. Wow.
And if anyone wants to come at me, it's at Robbie Herrick on Twitter. I'm more than happy to have that conversation.
And last but not least, the referees.
It's beautiful not having to talk about them. It's how good is it not having to, they've blown this or blown that. There was a bit of holding going on, but they seem to let it go.
Yeah. For me,
they're very consistent throughout the 60 minutes.
There was one holding that maybe could have been called, but it was nice to see no flag football, which we got a bit accustomed to with the Colts.
Yeah, Zach Passer got a call back for holding, didn't he? Which but then he come back and got the next catch. He got the touchdown, which he made up for it. There was on our first drive, Carson called he snapped the ball literally as it hit 0.
Yeah,
I saw the flag and I thought he was going to get a flag for delay of game, but it was actually Jamal Adams actually just stepped offside. So it was brilliant not to have to talk about the refs, especially after the issues they had on Thursday night. It was with the Buccaneers game. It was quite nice to.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you a question because you might know why they did it. Because I don't get the exact ruling, but there was a play I think it was in the first quarter when we would have sacked Russell Wilson, but they blown it dead for a false start on DK Metcalf. For me, it seems like it's giving the Seahawks another chance rather than punishing him for a penalty. I don't know the
Yeah,
exact.
no, he just got out of his stance too quickly.
Yeah,
that's what he called back. We didn't get to see because obviously we got penalised for too many men down the field for the boom play action that went and turned out left and kind of flicking it to Pittman, but we just had too many offensive linemen down the field by the time. But I thought the refs had a very good game compared to what we saw last year. Rock wasn't flagged, but then he didn't get anywhere near anyone to hold him, did he? So,
and so about a 7 out of 10 for the refs.
Yeah, we don't like them, so I'm never going to give a ref 10 out of 10.
Never. Anyway, I mean that's it from me. Unless you have anything else to add.
No, just let's remember it's week 1. If we're talking about the same issues of Carson Wentz holding too long, too many people breaking through the O-line, the defense not stepping up and being accounted for, we need to worry. Best news is obviously, I think we mentioned it before we came on, Houston Texans are currently first. They are not going to win the AFC South, with Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor's good, yes, but he's not elite. They don't have enough pass rush. They don't have enough firepower. Yes, they're going to have a tight end we've never heard of that will score 3 touchdowns and go for 100 against us because that's what they do. But seeing the Titans get off to that slow start, Jacksonville I think have an issue with Trevor Lawrence. He's got a fantastic arm, but he just doesn't read the field. He's making the rookie mistakes. He had a couple of real stupid interceptions. So, but again, it's week 1. We can't read too much into it. But I think the AFC South should be okay for us.
Yeah.
But as it stands, if we play like this, I don't want to be in the playoffs. We'll get embarrassed.
Is this a big plan to tank for Archie Manning? Who knows?
Don't toy with a man's emotions.
Anyway, that's it from us. Player ratings. It was good, it was bad, and it was definitely ugly.
Definitely ugly.
On to week 2. Let's hope for better things. See you all later.
Cheers, buddy.